إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كل مسكر خمر وكل مسكر حرام. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم ما أسكر كثيره فقليله حرام. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this ayah, O believers, intoxicants, gambling, idols, and drawing lots for decisions are all of shaitan's handiwork. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, shun them that you may be successful. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, it's not necessarily shun them, but it is to stay away, which is something important that we'll speak about in this khutbah. But first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam make it very clear, a ruling very clear here, where no qiyas is really needed, that every muskirin, which is an intoxicant, is haram. Rather, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us every muskirin, thing that intoxicates you, is khamr, which is wine and alcohol. And then he follows to say, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and this is in Sahih Muslim, and kullu muskirin haram, and everything that intoxicates is haram. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam makes it very clear too, anything which intoxicates you by taking a lot of it, by taking loads of it, by taking a mass of it, then a small amount of it is haram as well. So if you take a small amount of anything that may not have an effect on you, it doesn't mean it's not going to be haram. If a lot of it makes you drunk, if it makes you intoxicated, then it is also haram, whether you take a little bit of it or whether you take a lot of it. What is iskar though? We don't need to really play around with iskar. Everyone understands, especially in Britain, everyone understands something that makes you high, something that makes you drunk. We all know those drugs that are very much available in our community, and we all know alcohol in this country as well. All of these things are muskirin, and the Prophet ﷺ told us that every muskirin, everything that intoxicates, is khamr, is wine, and all of it is haram. So iskar is something that basically takes your aql away. فَقْدُ الْعَقْلِ وَالْإِدْرَاقِ, which means you lose your mind, you lose your aql, it goes, and your cognitive abilities as well. You can't really understand, and we all understand and see those people when they drink too much, what happens to them, or when they have too much drugs, what happens to them. And that's why, if that's what happens when there's kathiruhu, when there's lots, فَقَلِيلُهُ haram. And this is, this is the ruling for anything that intoxicates you, whether it's alcohol or drugs of any type, whether it's taken by smoking or by drinking or by eating, whichever way it may be, it has that ruling. Also, it is forbidden, haram, something that you're not allowed to do and you will get sin for. If there's darar in it, la darar, the Prophet ﷺ taught us, la darar wa la dirar. There's no harm and there's no returning, reciprocating of harm between you as well. We understand from the people who have been on these for a long time, how much harm it does. The harm is not something that's just temporary. The effects are not just there for an hour, or a few hours, or a few minutes. They're there for a lifetime. That is because a person might think, oh, I'm only trying this once, so I'm just going to have a bit, just one time. We're traveling somewhere, or they do it there, it's available, we're just going to do it there, come back, and I'm going to leave it. And they somehow think they can't stop themselves, going somewhere else, but somehow they're going to stop themselves when they come back to their locality. But of course, from what we've seen in our lifetime, the true is opposite, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah tells us, that a good habit is hard to keep going. You have to struggle for it. Reading Qur'an every day, doing something regularly, you have to struggle for it. But when it comes to bad things, you do it once and it becomes a habit. May Allah protect us and our children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, teaches us. There's a principle here. Yes, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, not utruku. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't tell us utruku, to leave it. He tells us, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, stay away from it. Because of the great harm that comes with it. And you can see, as I said, the harm that it takes is that it's medically and now scientifically proven that this changes the way your brain and your body functions. It changes the way that people think. People are much more linear thinking. And many of you may be very suddenly be able to see that in front of you. They think differently. They become impatient. People that were so sharp, they were so full of energy, so much ambition. You would see them and you would feed the energy of them. You become live and you think, I need to do something. These same people, after years of having bad habits, taking certain intoxicants, having bad friends, being around bad friends, they become dead. They just become more slouchy and lazy and miserable. And from giving you that energy, it's like they're sucking the energy from you all of a sudden. And that's from the damages of taking long-term drugs. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. What is success? لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. What is success? Success, we all know, of one purpose. People always think there's this game in life to be successful as this. There's only one success, and that is pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created the man and the jinn except that they worship me. There's only one success. It's just like when, people, you might be good at something, you might be a good artist, you might be good at skateboarding, you might have a hobby. But then when they come to ask you, when a person wants to measure you in society, they don't ask how you're good at that. They ask you how much money are you making. When they come to do rishta, you're not going to say I'm level 80 on Call of Duty. They're going to be like, no, that's the one. You're having my daughter. It's not going to work. They're going to be like, what work are you doing where you're making an income? Just like that, you might be successful in anything in life. You might be good. You might have a well-paid job, halal and everything. But the main thing is your success in the akhirah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, is to believe in al-ghayb, to pray, and to give sadaqah. They are the people who are the truly successful in this life. So no matter how much money you make, no matter where you go, your true success is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obeying Him Jalla wa ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانَ أَن يُوقَعَ بَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ فِي الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. And I am so shocked, subhanAllah, how accurate this is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on, وَيَسُدَّكُمْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَعَنِ الصَّلَاةِ فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُنْتَهُونَ. Shaitan's plan is to stir up hostility and hatred between you, intoxicants and gambling, and to prevent you from remembering Allah and praying. Let's separate those two. How many times have we seen people, they fight in a way they would never have fought because they got into drugs, because the problem was about drugs, or because of gambling. They acted against each other, falling out with each other in a way that they'll never get back together again. Just because the drugs made them do that. And they might not realize it there, because that's because young people are naive. They don't understand that. We were all there once. They think, oh, I'm just doing it one day. Oh, that's not happening to me. But when they're older, I'll tell you now, nearly every single one will be like, that's just how it is, isn't it? They'll admit it. In youth, they won't, but they will when they're older. That's guaranteed. Not only does it cause fights and hatred and baghdha, hatred between the people, your own friends that you fall out with, but it also takes you an dhikrillah, وعن الصلاة. SubhanAllah, how many people were praying. And we thought maybe they just have some shortcomings. Smoking is not the same ruling as, that's darar. Yes, there's harm in smoking, but drugs is something else. That's a muskil, yes. There's other effects and consequences that will happen with drugs and alcohol that won't with other sins. And we see that this takes people away from the salah. It takes people from dhikrillah, from remembering Allah, and as-salah. So much that a person who was praying 5 times a day may not even pray Jumu'ah or even attend the Eid Salah. And we see that in our community today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children and make us all successful. وأقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. So we mentioned the harms of taking drugs, intoxicants of any type, whether you're drinking them, whether you're eating them, smoking them, whichever other ways, which I don't want to mention. It's the holidays, we have children in. So what do you do if somebody's in that stage? You may have a family member who's upon that. And you can't really let it go. All you can do is, of course, give advice to that person and give them hope. And if you may be going that way, you might have friends that way. My advice is to find a better company, because you don't want to do that. You don't want to be with a company that will drag your success down, not only ukhrawi, in your akhirah, but also dunyawi, in this dunya as well. If you have these habits, there's ways to quit it. You don't have to go what we say cold turkey. Yes, which is just to quit everything. But you can do it in stages. As a matter of fact, alcohol, because there were certain things that the Arabs did, they couldn't leave it straight away. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent the Qur'an in parts, over 23 years. And so the rulings came slightly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't just say, that's it, there's no more slaves anymore, there's no more alcohol anymore. No, some rulings came in stages, according to the capability of the Muslims, so they become Muslim. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمُنَافِعٌ لِلنَّاسِ وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they ask you about gambling, they ask you about al-khamr, about alcohol, wal-maysir, and gambling. Say, in them is harm and there's benefit as well, but the harm is greater than the benefit. So when this ayah was revealed, it wasn't necessarily forbidding alcohol. But then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَىٰ حَتَّى تَعْلَمُوا مَا تَقُولُونَ. The people who believe, don't come near to salah until you know what you're saying. Don't come when you're drunk till you know what you're saying. So you can see now the Sahaba, the people who did drink, not all of them did, would start to control themselves, considering when their prayer times were. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the ayah that we did, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, stay away from it. فَاجْتَنِبُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, that you may become successful. And when that happened, they said the whole of Medina was flowing with wine. Because once the Sahaba were commanded to do something, سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا, they did it, and they broke their wines, they threw out on the streets, and the whole of Medina was flowing with wine. So it can be difficult, but we have to make that effort. I know somebody who gave up smoking. I was working with them. I didn't know them personally while they were going through this. They were smoking, they were taking high-class drugs, and they were having alcohol as well. They had all these bad habits. I asked him, how did you do it over time? How long did it take you? He said it took me like 6 months to a year. And I was shocked. I thought, no way. Like all of them at once. He said, I gave them up all at once. I don't advise you to do that because it's very difficult. As he explains, he said every day he said he was suicidal, so he just had to change. He just had to change. He thought, it's either kill myself or return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he chose, alhamdulillah, to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's a practicing brother, alhamdulillah. And he used to go to the shop every day with big bags of ice. And the thing is, if you don't want to get in this position, then don't start it. That's prevention is better than the cure, because the cure wasn't nice. he would bring bags of ice, and he used to say they would be digging into my fingers, but he'd just be walking down the street like this. He'd throw them into the bathtub every single day. He couldn't do it otherwise. And he'll fill it with water, and he'll keep that there for him every day. And when he's feeling hard, like he can't handle it, he'll just go in there and just put himself in water, and he'll hold his breath as hard as he can. Have a breath come out, and hold himself down. Put his own body, whole body into the water. And this was just so he feels something, because he couldn't have drugs anymore. Yeah, so if you don't want to find yourself in a bad position, prevention is better than cure. May Allah to protect us. Also, some of the young ones need to know that these people that go around with cars and they want to persuade you. And nowadays, children are allowed to have certain vehicles that they can get around on, and they're taking advantage of the youth. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by those cars. Don't be fooled by his money. Don't look at his cars. Don't look at how miserable he is. And if you think he's happy, you've probably only seen him when he's high or something. Because I'm telling you now, the people who take drugs, they are never happy except for when they take those drugs. They are depressed. They are sad. They don't smile anymore. Because the only time they're happy is when they take those drugs. And even then, they're not happy. These kids might smoke it together, but when they're older, they'll be smoking it alone. They'll be smoking it alone. And you might think that's sad when you're young, but that's how sad you'll be when you're older if you start that now. If they tell you to sell something or take something, tell them no. And if you're in trouble, then seek help, whether it's from your parents or the authorities, because you don't need to go down that route. Because if you do, it's your life that's going to be troublesome. And it's your life that you're throwing away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our children, to keep us away from evil, to keep them away from drugs and from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all of the salihun and grant us dhurriyyah of the salihin. آمين يا رب. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا إنك جامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه إن الله لا يخلف الميعاد. يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك. اللهم لا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا. اللهم لا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واتقوه يجعل لكم من أمركم مخرجا وأقيموا الصلاة.